I saw you come in, it was like, it's mad out there, isn't it?
Oh well. Hey guys, Adriana Jimenez joined here with Matchroom Boxing's very own Eddie Hearn. Eddie, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. We see the beautiful arena behind us. This is the calm before the storm, right? As a promoter, you see this, you know what's going to happen later on. What's the mentality right now?
This is a really nice view for me as a promoter, especially when it's full up. And you know that, well, not now, but you know that it's going to be full up later. Yeah. Ticket sales have gone really well. Sometimes you might turn up and you see the arena and you know that it hasn't sold that well, and you're kind of like draping a few blocks and trying to make it look good. But when you know that it's sold really well, when you know you've got a good card, and for us, this is where it all started. It was a year ago, probably last week, our first Matchroom Boxing USA card with DAZN. Jesse Vargas, Thomas Delorme, Jarrell Miller, Danny Roman, Artur Beterbiev. So that was a big night, and it's quite crazy to think that it's only been 12 months, because it feels like I've been every blade of grass in the world since then. So it's great to return here, and I really feel like we're getting momentum, not just across America, but in Chicago as well. When we did that first show, it was a really good show, and I felt that when we came back, they'd be back, and they have done, and they've doubled this time. So it's really positive.
I was here a year ago for that card, and I've seen the growth of DAZN. How do you see, as a promoter, putting on so many cards for DAZN, how do you see the growth of DAZN so far these past 12 months?
Quite amazing, really. I mean, I think when we started, I was probably a little bit arrogant in that, we got all this money and we're just going to come in and everyone's going to sign, and everyone's going to sign up. And obviously, we came from a standing start, not just Matchroom Boxing, but DAZN. So it wasn't like, I don't know, ESPN or Fox created an app, and they used their commercial power to naturally grow this platform. It grew from nothing, in America. No brand name, had to educate the audience. And I feel like over the 12-month period, I mean, when you look at the fighters that now fight on DAZN, from Joshua to Andy Ruiz to Canelo to Kovalev to Golovkin to Usyk to Estrada to Jesse Vargas to Devin Haney, Demetrius Andre, Danny Jacobs, Billy Joe Saunders. Like, it's endless. And I feel like we have the best stable in the world, and I feel like we have the best schedule in the world as well. And I feel like we offer the best value to fight fans. So we've got a long way to go. The numbers now are really, really good, and we're coming up to a big period of, obviously, Golovkin last week, Usyk tonight, and then Canelo in a couple of weeks, KSI against Logan Paul, Joshua Ruiz. You're going to drive a huge amount of subscriptions over that period, and we're in good shape going into 2020. In a subscription business, it's never ending, so it's not like you've never cracked it. You've got people might churn or unsubscribe for a month, or DAZN want to hit new targets and new numbers. So it's like, you put that schedule together till the end of December, and DAZN are like, that's brilliant, best schedule in boxing. It's like, yeah. And then like a week later, they go, right, what are you doing in January and February and March? It's like, oh, wow. So it's always constantly planning. It's not, it's always the aim of a network or a broadcaster to hit numbers. But in a subscription business, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more cutthroat. And the analysis of fighters works a little bit differently, in terms of who drives numbers, who drives subscription, who drives viewing figures, who creates digital and social interest. And that's what we've been really establishing over that year period. And I think a lot of fighters have benefited from the growth of DAZN, especially DAZN fighters, in terms of their activity and the money they've been paid. We do need to bring that money, sorry fighters, but just like, we need to fall back in line a little bit with the market. We will still have to overpay fighters because we're DAZN. We're not ESPN or Fox. They can go to a fighter and bluff them with how many viewing figures they've got and how great it is for their career. The truth is that our figures now are very similar to Showtime numbers. So I feel like DAZN is really growing in terms of its brand value and its credibility amongst fighters and in the sport.
Last time that I talked to you, you mentioned, well, everyone is mentioning that the DAZN schedule is on fire, and we have tonight Usyk, who's making his heavyweight debut. He completely dominated the cruiserweight division. Now he's stepping into the heavyweight. What are you expecting to see from him tonight?
I expect him to win well tonight. I mean, obviously we have a replacement in Chaz Witherspoon. Tyrone Spong was the original opponent. He failed a drugs test. I think Spong was fresher, But I think probably in boxing terms, Chaz Witherspoon is a better technical boxer. I think he probably hits a little bit harder, but they're fairly like for like. I think he'll be a little bit slow for Usyk. I think one thing that he's going to have is great feet and great speed for the division. I mean, you saw him weigh in yesterday at 215 pounds. It is light, but it's not too dissimilar to Deontay Wilder at the same time. He's not going to punch as hard as Deontay Wilder, but he's probably going to hit you more from different angles that you don't see. So tonight is difficult for him because everyone's just expecting him to breeze through Witherspoon. And if he doesn't, then he might get criticism. And if he does, then it's a mismatch. So it's like you can't really win sometimes. So, but really, the truth is in this division, everybody is live, especially someone who's got good fundamentals and can punch, like Witherspoon. So Witherspoon's going to have to start fast. Usyk is notoriously quite a slow starter, and I think he's going to take his time. He's not going to come out and be reckless and just start swinging punches. He likes to break his man down. He likes to suss them out, as does Lomachenko. It's kind of their mould. So I think it's going to be an intriguing sort of 2, 3, 4 rounds where Witherspoon will be live and dangerous. And then I expect Usyk to find his range and start hitting him from angles with speed that probably Witherspoon isn't used to.
You mentioned a key name in Wilder, but I'll get to that in a second. How difficult was it to just days away have that opponent change? Spong fails a test and right away have to go through a list of fighters.
Really, really difficult. But to be honest, you kind of become numb to it in the boxing game because it happens so often. Not just fighters failing drugs tests, but injuries or illnesses and late minute replacements. When it's the top of the bill, it's always difficult. We got a call confirmation from VADA at like 10 o'clock UK time on Monday that he'd failed a test. Then it has to go to the commission. Despite what people think, we don't run a drug agency. We don't run a commission. It's all dealt with by major organisations and sometimes government agencies, and obviously in this case VADA and the Illinois Commission. So I saw Tyrone Spong's comments recently. Here's my VADA test, it's negative. He took 3 VADA tests. He failed 2, he passed 1. So it's not a case of 1 out of 3 is good enough. 1 out of 3 the other way is not good enough. It's just how it is. So he's saying, I don't understand. It's quite simple. What you had in your system was not there a week later when you had it. So that's for you to deal with. All I know is in that situation, if Illinois would have turned around to me and said, we've looked at this and we've spoke to Spong and we've cleared him to fight, he fights. But the next morning they made their decision, we will not license Tyrone Spong, and then the search starts. Luckily we have so many heavyweights that we're talking to virtually every heavyweight like every day. And Chaz Witherspoon's a guy who has nearly fought like Dillian Whyte, nearly fought Jarrell Miller once. So he's like that guy who he's unbeaten for 5 years, but he's been looking for that big opportunity. And basically you have to come in with a lot of money because it's 5 days away, and you have to pay him very well because that's what he deserves it. He's built a record up where he has some value, and he's fighting Usyk on 5 days' notice. So he was in the gym, he was ready, accepted. We had 3 or 4 guys in the mix, and he was the guy we chose. And I like him. I don't know if you spoke to him this week. He's a really endearing guy, And all I want from him is I want him to give 120%. And I believe he's the guy that will do that. Because I think some people might turn up for the money, feel as though they're beaten before they've started, not really let their hands go. And I don't want that. I want a guy who I genuinely believe will try and take this moment. He's a massive underdog. Massive underdog. So was Andy Ruiz, and in the heavyweight game, I know I have, so no more, Chaz. But in the heavyweight game, these guys are huge, when they're letting their hands go, and Chaz can fight. It's not like he's going to go in and waft around. He can fight. He has good skills. He can punch, but he is up against a legend from the cruiserweight division. So he doesn't have to fear Usyk in terms of this crazy heavyweight puncher, like a Wilder or a Joshua. But he does have to fear him for his movement and his speed and probably things that he won't be able to deal with as the fight unfolds.
Well, when I talked to him a couple of days ago, he told me that he was one of those guys in line for Anthony Joshua, which eventually became Andy Ruiz, and he said he missed out on that chance.
Yeah, I'm not sure. He may have. The problem is in boxing is that when an opponent falls out in a high-profile situation, everyone's on the hustle trying to make money, right? So people will phone Chaz Witherspoon and say, Chaz, would you be interested in this fight? nothing to do with me or Joshua, right? Unrelated. And then come to me and go, just to let you know, I've got Chaz Witherspoon. So, you know, to be honest, he wasn't really in the running for that fight, but he's been in the running for a lot of big fights. And you know, I said to him earlier this week, you know, if you win, you will change your life forever. Like, but if you do well, you will also change your life forever. So you just got to go in and let your hands go and enjoy yourself, because it's how you lose. You know, if he goes 10 rounds but doesn't throw a punch and gets stopped in a corner by the ref, then it doesn't really do a lot. If he has an absolute firefight for 5 or 6 rounds where there's a couple of oohs and ahs, then he walks out, and then next week he gets a phone call from us or Top Rank saying, oh, we've got Tyson Fury, you know, we've got Derek Chisora. So that's really the name of the game. So there's a lot to fight for him in this as well.
Absolutely. I think it's, you mentioned the key word right there of it's how you lose. Keywords, I guess, how you lose.
Yeah, I mean, you want to win.
Yeah.
But, but it is how you lose, you know, especially in his situation. Because he could make a name for himself tonight by losing. You know, no one gives him a prayer. So all he's got to do is have some success, and his value, you know, raises.
Well, speaking of a value there and other fights that are kind of difficult to make. Oh, what's going on with my phone here? Sorry about that. These past few days, Usyk also mentioned that he's making his debut today, of course, but he's already calling out Wilder. He says he wants Wilder. I guess he also mentioned Anthony Joshua because he has, Andy Ruiz because he has the 3 belts, but he likes the green one for some reason. You've been there in the past trying to make a fight with Wilder. How difficult will it be to make this fight with Usyk?
I think it will be difficult to make any Usyk fight. You know, he's the mandatory challenger so long as he wins tonight. He's the mandatory challenger for the WBO World Heavyweight title. So he gets the winner of Joshua Ruiz. There will also be a mandatory with the IBF. So you're going to get fragmented belts come up. And there's no way that Wilder will fight Usyk unless he has a belt. And it may have to be an undisputed fight, because you just wouldn't pick Alexander Usyk. You know, he's growing in terms of his global commercial value and profile, but he's very, very good, and he's very, very awkward, and he's going to be hard to look good against. So I think he identifies Wilder as a fighter that he really like. I think as a technical boxer, every skillful boxer believes that they can beat Deontay Wilder, because he's not that good, but he's very dangerous. You know, like, I'm not taking pot shots at him, but in terms of boxing skills, he ain't that good, but he's very dangerous, and he has that ability to win. You know, and that makes him dangerous. So I think Usyk looks at Wilder and thinks, I will school you. That's what I think. But it's not always that easy, not with the guys punching as hard as they do.
Yeah. Well, obviously it's his job to fight, and it's like your job as a promoter to get him the fights. How close is he, or how soon would it be for him to fight for a world title, assuming he does well?
This is it. This is the only one he's going to have, this fight, and then he's going to fight for the world heavyweight title. So, you know, he's going to go out to Saudi Arabia. He's going to watch Joshua Ruiz. The winner of that fight will be ordered to fight him, you know, straight away. And they will have to fight him, or they will have to vacate, or they'll have to fight Pulev. Again, it's going to be a situation where all of a sudden, you know, you've got 2 mandatories, and you have to decide which deal's easier to make. No one's going to fight Usyk. And listen, even from my point of view, I'll be honest, from an Anthony Joshua perspective, if I'm advising Anthony Joshua to fight Pulev or Usyk, I'd probably fight Pulev, straight up. But Joshua might look differently. You know, Joshua might want the challenge of Alexander Usyk. But right now, all he's thinking about is Andy Ruiz. So we'll deal with that later. That'll be a nice problem to have, you know. But, you know, if Andy Ruiz wins, he has the same problem. So Usyk's in a brilliant position. That's why tonight's kind of dangerous. Like, he's not expected to lose, but obviously if he did, he would blow everything.
Last week you were nervous with Gennady Golovkin and Derevchenko. This week you're nervous about this debut. Is that the difficult part about putting up good fights, that they're always, you know, either 50-50 or they're just so, you never know what's going to happen, that you're not putting just easy fights, so it makes you nervous. You're nervous all the time.
To be honest, like, tonight is, you know, the bookmakers will have it as quite an easy fight for Usyk. I think in heavyweight division, that's never the case. To be honest, as a promoter, but as a fan, I want to be nervous. You know, that means I'm going to enjoy my night. That means I've got a good fight. And ultimately, if I've got a good fight, that's good news for fans and that's good news for DAZN. So last week, I knew how good Derevyanchenko is, and I knew how much he'd want to win. You know, and I knew how much he'd try, and it was one of the fights of the year. So great, our guy won, but we got a fight of the year. And, you know, I think if it was a case of turning up to the venue every week, not really feeling the butterflies, we wouldn't have great fights. And I don't want that because I'd get bored as well.
Well, speaking of the last week's fight with Derevyanchenko and Golovkin, is it probable that we're going to have Golovkin fight someone a bit easier, like a little easier fight before he starts looking for maybe the rematch or Canelo?
I don't think that will be Gennadi's choice because he doesn't really like those easy fights. But and sometimes those easy fights are dangerous because you can't get yourself up for it. He's just won a vacant title, so there will be a mandatory due. Everybody, you know, DAZN will want to make Canelo Triple G. You know, Triple G wants that fight. But ultimately, Canelo will decide. You know, he'll be put under massive pressure from DAZN to take that fight. But who knows what's going to happen with those discussions. So Gennadi, you know, when I got involved with Gennadi, I sort of said to him, look, we've got to make our own moves. You've got to control your own destiny. So you're fighting Derevyanchenko. If you have to have a mandatory, so be it. You've got Demetrius Andrade, you've got Billy Joe Saunders, you've got Callum Smith, you've got all these guys, you've got a Danny Jacobs rematch. So these are all options for him. So I think if the IBF order a mandatory, I think he'll probably jump in that end of January, early February. But, you know, it was a tough fight. So he's going to have a few weeks to relax his body and his mind and then see when he wants to fight.
What's the fight that you would like to make with Gennady Golovkin if it was just completely up to you, no politics involved, just get it done?
Do you know what? There's so many good fights. Obviously, the Canelo fight is the one. I think it's still, you know, one of the biggest fights in boxing. And I felt like he won the first fight. The second fight was very close. And I believe he deserves a third fight, and it's a fight that he wants. Love a unification with Demetrius Andrade. Love a fight in the UK with Callum Smith, you know, Billy Joe Saunders. So loads of options, but it's difficult to look past the Canelo fight. You know, I think everybody, all those guys that I mentioned, and, you know, we represent them all. Danny Jacobs, Callum Smith, Demetrius Andrade, Billy Joe Saunders. They all want to fight Canelo or Golovkin. That's like the biggest fight, the biggest test in the division. If they can't fight them, they've got to fight each other. And that's what will have to happen next spring, summer.
I want to go back to with Canelo talk. I remembered Oscar De La Hoya. We had a questionnaire that said about Usyk, how likely is it for him to become a world champ? Get a title at heavyweight. And your frenemy, Oscar De La Hoya, he said absolutely. He said yes, that he's very likely to become a champion in 2020 right away. What do you make of that from your frenemy?
I think with Oscar, we get on pretty well. Like he'll always speak his mind, and he's well within his right not to agree with me all the time. Not a lot of people do. But what you can't take away from Oscar is his knowledge of the fight game. He's one of the great pound-for-pound fighters of all time. So he knows boxing. I mean, he knows boxing better than me, let's be honest. So if he thinks that Usyk's going to be a world champion, I agree with him. And I think people in the sport know how good Alexander Usyk is. And tonight will give us a good indication as to how he handles the bigger guys. But there's going to be bigger tests to come after Chaz Witherspoon.
In the bigger test, Canelo moving up to 175 to fight Kovalev. What do you make of him moving up to those two divisions?
I think it's quite clever because I think, you know, in terms of light heavyweights who you'd pick right now to move up and fight, Kovalev is the guy. You know, great fighter, but obviously at the end of his career. Still dangerous, you know, it's still a dangerous fight, but you're not going to move up to 175 and fight Bivol, Beterbiev or Gozic. You know, like they're beasts, they're fresh, they're in their prime, they're very dangerous. And Kovalev is still dangerous, but he is a faded fighter. So I think it's a good move from Canelo. I see him winning that fight. I don't think it's going to be easy because I think Kovalev will be up for it. It's probably his last hurrah. And I have no problem with it. You know, I think that from a Matchroom, Triple G, DAZN point of view, we didn't get the fight that we wanted because that was Gennady Golovkin. But you can't knock Canelo's resume. You know, if he was fighting top 15 guys that you've never heard of, then you go, why are you fighting these guys? And why aren't you fighting Triple G? But he's boxed Danny Jacobs and Sergey Kovalev in his 2019 year. So I don't believe Canelo ducks anybody, but sometimes he might make decisions because he don't want to give him, you know, he don't like him and he don't want to give him the fight. But as long as he's fighting A-level guys, you have to respect him, and he is doing that.
Well, when I talked to Bivol just a couple of days ago at the press conference, he told me that he wants the Canelo fight. You know, he said he's even willing to go down to 168. I don't even know if he said 160, but he's even willing to go down, you know?
Yeah, he could make super middle, you know, but again, he's a dangerous fighter. He's very, very fresh. You know, and he doesn't yet have the profile to make that a mega fight, you know? So he's like one of those guys, a bit like Beterbiev and Godzic. He's like brilliant fighters, but you need to raise their profile. And you need to put them in with each other. That's why Beterbiev, Godzic's a good fight. No one's really heard of those guys, so put them in together and make a star. You know, and the same with Bivol. Put him in with the winner of that fight, no problem. So, yeah, but Bivol's a brilliant fighter. And tonight, he has a tough fight against Castillo. I'm looking for him to make a statement because the last couple of fights, he's not been defensive, but he's kind of waiting for that big fight. So it's almost like he doesn't want to take too many chances, but you have to entertain. And that's actually how you get the fights, because then the fans start calling that fight on.
Entertainment. We have KSI, Logan Paul. That's entertainment. Like, I know there's so many mixed feelings. Some people, boxing purists, don't want to hear anything about that. But, you know, it's entertainment. I get it. What kind of madness are you expecting with that?
Well, judging by the first two press conferences, total madness. I mean, every celebrity in LA and America is going to be there. You know, these guys know everybody. Their numbers are huge, you know, and they can fight. You know, I saw the first fight. It was a good fight. This time I talked him into no head guards and 10-ounce gloves. It's dangerous. You know, and they're taking it seriously. They're training properly. You know, you've got Shannon Briggs. He's in one team with other proper trainers. You've got Jeff Mayweather in the other team. Like, these guys are training hard. They're athletes. They can fight. And it's going to be exciting. You know, it's a different audience. You know, like I said, we've got so many subscribers now coming into DAZN. This is going to bring 500,000 non-boxing fans to the platform. And hopefully during that time we can convince them to stay and show them what we love about boxing and turn them into boxing fans.
And so we have Billy Joe Saunders fighting. Talk to me a little bit more about who he's fighting on that card again.
He's fighting Marcelo Caceres from Argentina. He's 29-0, undefeated. Good fighter. It was difficult, you know. I wanted an American. And I looked at Gabe Rosado. I was a bit worried because he was coming off a loss, but, you know, good character, good fighter. Asked the WBO, they said no. Went to Dennis Duglin, who's another American, good fighter, a good character. WBO said no. So I had to find someone from the rankings. And, you know, he was a guy that was undefeated, I knew would come to fight. And Billy Joe needs to look good in that fight, you know, because that's his platform to go out and sell himself to the other fighters in the division and say, look, I'm now a star in the division. And obviously the profile of boxing on that card will really help his US profile as well.
Will Devin Haney be on that card as well?
He will be, yeah. We're just working out his opponent, and Devin will be on that card as well.
What about Derek Chisora and David Price? I know you were looking for the opponent. You got one. It's going to be a great fight.
Yeah, I mean, it's a much bigger fight for Britain than the Joseph Parker fight. Obviously, probably worldwide, Joseph Parker had the edge, but it's an intriguing fight. You know, both guys have losses. Both guys are dangerous. Price super dangerous in the first half of the fight. Chisora just relentless. You know, it's one of those where you have to just watch through your fingers, because two great guys, two great stalwarts of British boxing, and someone is going to get knocked out. So it's going to be an intriguing fight. And October 26th is a big card. You know, you've got Regis Progress against Josh Taylor, unification fight, final of the Super Series. Derek Chisora against David Price. You've got Lee Selby against Ricky Burns, Lawrence Okoli for the European title, Conor Benn. So it's a big show.
You're really busy. You're traveling everywhere. You've had fights, obviously, here in the U.S. You've gone down to Mexico, the U.K., Italy, Monaco. Where are you planning on going to next?
I don't know. Maybe a holiday will be nice, but Spain will be announced soon. So we just launched Matchroom Spain, and there'll be around 6 to 8 shows in Spain next year as well. So we'll be in Barcelona in December. So obviously we had New York last week, Chicago this week. We're in Newcastle next week. You probably haven't heard of Newcastle, but it's a crazy place in England. Then we've got the O2 in London for the Progress Taylor and Chisora Price. Then we've got November 2nd in Manchester with Katie Taylor. Buatsi, obviously, that's paired up with Canelo and Kovalev. November 9 is KSI. November 16 we have a week off. November 23 is Callum Smith in Liverpool. November 30 is Monaco. December 7 is Saudi Arabia. December 12 will be Barcelona, and December 13 will be back in the US. So busy times.
Very busy. I'm going to almost all of those. I think Monaco, I won't be there. Spain, I didn't know about Spain.
Yeah,
well, you know, I speak Spanish. If you ever need a Spanish-speaking person, I'm here. You know, I feel like we could just go on and on and on. We'll just ended with the big mega fight that we're all just waiting for, of course, Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz. What's the update right now? What's going on with Anthony Joshua? How's training camp?
You know, it's mad that it's still 8 weeks to go. He's been in camp for probably 4 weeks already. A lot of early sparring now, you know, replicating the style of Ruiz. The last time we had probably 3 weeks of sparring, and it was tough to find a guy like Ruiz because there's not many like him, you know.
Yeah.
Small, a little bit chubby, fast hands, you know, really good on the inside. Now we've replicated that. I feel like the preparation is going to be great. Andy Ruiz is in camp. These weeks are going slowly, you know. I want it to hurry up, but I don't want it to hurry up because I know I'm going to be like a bag of nerves on that fight, and I think the whole world will be watching. It's such a huge fight. It's the fight of the year, and it's a brilliant heavyweight fight, and I believe my man's going to do it.
We cannot wait. Eddie, thank you so much for taking the time. Looking forward to seeing this place packed and catching some good fights. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Cheers.
All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.